guys, it's Em. Welcome back to my channel. Today is our final day for our Owl Readathon vlogs, as well as our new book club announcement because May is literally right around the corner. It is in 2 days. Today's the 29th, tomorrow's the 30th, and then it's May 1st. So, we are going to be talking about what I have read this whole month. 14 books. What an accomplishment, if I do say so myself. I don't know what I'm doing. But yeah, so I wanted to show you guys my last few vlog updates, then we'll talk about what I read this month, and then we will wrap it up with what we are reading for our May book club. What was the first book I read? Pandemonium. Okay, I'm gonna go put these in order. I'll be right back. I broke a nail. Hey you guys, quick update. It is Sunday, and in the last 24 hours I have finished reading City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. There's Jasper, waiting to be fed. And Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. I loved this book. Man, now I just want to go to Italy. I want to go to the beach first, now I want to go to Italy. And of course, I love the Mortal Instruments series by Cassandra Clare. I will be finishing up that series once April is over. And the last book I have to read is Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell for the Owl Readathons, and I need to finish Pride and Prejudice for our book club. So yeah, that's my final update for today. Hey you guys, it is 2:40 on April 29th, and I just finished Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. You know what that means? I finished both Owl Readathons. I read 14 books this month. That is a new record for me. I hope you guys enjoyed this Owl Readathon journey that I went on. And I really hope I get to hear about y'all's owl journeys. Just to see what we all went through this month. I'm looking forward to our newts in August. Okay, I'm gonna go to bed, but I'm very happy. So happy. Alright, good night you guys. Alright you guys, that is it for our Owl Readathon. I completed the Owl Readathon, and wow, what an experience. Unfortunately, I did not finish Pride and Prejudice. It just did not hit me right. You know, maybe I'll go back to it when I'm really feeling like reading a classic novel. I mean, you know, I always think that you can tell when a book is a bad book, and this is not a bad book. So maybe it just wasn't the right time for me to be reading this, and that is okay. But in better news, we have picked our May book club book, and that is going to be Wanderlost by Jen Malone. I decided to use this book because I need to leave the house. I want to travel, I want to experience the world, and it's very difficult to do that right now. And apparently this is going to be one of those books where you can go along with the character and go on the adventures that they go on in different parts of the world. From what I've gathered, the main character, Aubrey, takes her sister's spot as the leader for a senior citizen tour in Europe, and it's her experience on that tour as one of the leaders. So hopefully we will get to experience all that she gets to experience, and I'm very excited. So if you are part of our book club or want to be part of our book club, this is what we will be reading. There we go. I will be putting a link to this on Goodreads so that you can look and see the information about it, and you are more than welcome to get it at your local bookstore, online, audiobook, however you want. This is an open book club, so you read at your own pace. We talk about it on my Instagram. I would like to apologize for not talking about Pride and Prejudice as often as I said I would. I really did struggle to read that book, so I was also struggling to come up with questions to ask and discussions to have. So hopefully I will be doing a better job this time around. We shall see. I will be posting some updates on my Instagram, so go check us out there. And yeah, I look forward forward to reading with you guys. So I finally put the books that I read in order from when I first started this readathon on April 1st to last night when I finished Fangirl. The first book that I read this month was Pandemonium by Lauren Oliver. This was a reread. I had read the series originally in late middle school, I believe, and it was just about time that I reread, there, now you can see the author's name, that I reread the books. So now all I have left to read is Requiem. The next book I read was The Sun and Her Flowers by Rupi Kaur. This was a fast, easy read. It's all poetry, beautiful poetry. It's actually currently being loaned out to my roommate, but I stole it from her just so I could film this video. The third book was another reread, and that is Percy Jackson and the Lightning Thief by Rick Riordan. I decided to read this one late in the game. It was, I think, April 4th or 5th, and I changed up some books throughout the month, and this was one of them. This was the first one I changed because I just really wanted to go back and reread Percy Jackson. Next, I read Legendary by Stephanie Garber. This is the second book in the Caravel series. I have read the first book prior to this readathon, and now I've read the second one, and I will be reading the third one hopefully this coming month in May to finish off the series and just see what happens, because this is just such a good story to get into. I was recently in contact with another booktuber, and she was talking about how Legendary was in fact better than Caravel for her, and I have to agree. I really enjoyed this one, even better than Caravel. The fifth book I read was Cinder by Marissa Meyer. This was the first time I have ever read this series, and I loved it, and afterwards I bought the rest of the series, which I mentioned in my last video, so you get to see that again, and I apologize, but I did love this series so much. This book, I haven't even read the series. I loved this book so much, and if you get a chance to read it, I would highly recommend it. Next, I read The Night Circus by Erin Morgenstern. This was on my TBR for about 2 years, and I finally picked it up, and once I did, I could not put it down. I will admit it took me a hot minute to get into the story. The beginning is a lot of world building, but once you get into it, it was just so good, and I'm so glad I finally read it, and I'm glad that the Owl Readathon was an excuse for me to read this book, because otherwise it would probably just keep sitting on my TBR. The Night Circus completed my first set of Owl Readathons, so I got to move on to my second set. For those of you who are new to my channel, what happened was I did the 2019 prompts again instead of the 2020 prompt. Did not realize things were updated. I did not do my research. But when I found out, I immediately formed a new Owl Readathon TBR for this year, and I went ahead and started it. To start, I read Do Your Laundry or You'll Die Alone by Becky Blades. This was a gift to me, I believe, for my graduation, and there's a lot of really good life advice in this book. If you are just looking for advice with a mother's touch, this is it. She explains what happens if you don't do your laundry and you die alone. She explains that whole trail and how you get there, and that's just on the first page. This kind of motivated me to kind of pick my life back up since this quarantine has been, you know, a little difficult to keep a routine, but this one. Next, I read The Raven Boys by Maggie Stiefvater. I mispronounced it, I think, in my last video, and I'm gonna mispronounce it again, and I apologize if I'm correct. Yay! If I'm wrong, I'm so sorry. But I decided to read this book because I had seen it on a lot of other booktubers' shelves. That is the only reason I picked it up and the only reason I decided to read it, and I don't regret that decision. This was a good book, a great book, if I may. It took me a minute to get into it, but once I did, great. I read this in about 2 days, so, and it's a short book, it's not that long. So if you get a chance to read The Raven Boys, I highly recommend it. I really look forward to reading the rest of the trilogy, so. The next book was actually a part of a trilogy that I was saving for the summer, but I've been needing a little bit of summer brought to me, so I decided to read The Summer I Turned Pretty by Jenny Han. I read this and immediately I felt like I was at the beach. This book is the definition of beach ambiance. Oh my goodness, I want to go to the beach now that I read this book. And because I read this book and it just happened to qualify for one of the readathon prompts, I read the next book of the trilogy, It's Not Summer Without You, and it was just as good. I mean, these are just feel-good books that you can just, I'm sorry, I keep touching them to my face, but they're actually quite cold, which is nice because it's warm out. That's why my window's open and you can hear people doing their yard work. I would recommend this. Jenny Han is one of my favorite authors. I love her dearly, and the first book I will probably be reading in the month of May is We'll Always Have Summer by Jenny Han, the third book to this trilogy. After reading the first two books of The Summer I Turned Pretty, I was still in a beach, water, ocean mood, so I read Wake by Amanda Hocking. This book was recommended to me by my best friend, so I, of course, just had to read it. I mean, it would kind of be against best friend code if I just let it sit on the shelf. After I read Wake, I decided to pick up City of Ashes by Cassandra Clare. This is the second book in the Mortal Instruments series. I have read the Mortal Instruments series once through before. I read it in middle school, loved it, and I think I go into more detail about my relationship with this series in another video, but I did love this book. There were a lot of details that I had forgotten, and I'm really glad I reread it. It's not how I remember reading it as a middle schooler versus reading it as a 20-year-old. Very different views, and both were great. I feel like there was more magic in when I was in middle school, and here it just hits a little bit harder, but still just as great, and I am so glad I'm doing a reread of this series. The second to last book I picked up was Love and Gelato by Jenna Evans Welch. I have been meaning to read this book because okay, we're gonna get real here. I picked up this book only because I liked the cover. That's it. I am one of those people that the cover kind of needs to be aesthetically pleasing for me in order for me to get the motivation to read the book. I have, of course, try not to judge books by their cover. Like the Summer I Turned Pretty books, this one transported me to Italy, which is where the story takes place. I could go on and on and on about this book. After I read this book, I went and made some Italian food. I just very much wanted to eat gelato. So if you need a book that helps make you feel like this quarantine isn't real, this is the book for you. Ugh, just love this book. I found out that there is a new book by Jenna Evans Welch coming out. Jenna Evans Welch. My voice production and speech is very bad. My battery keeps dying on my camera. It's called Love and Olives. Apparently it is a story that takes place in Greece, and I believe it's coming out November of 2020. So I will be getting on that boat. I'm gonna get that book because I'm so excited. I will also be reading Love and Luck, hopefully very soon, which is the other book that Jenna Evans Welch has written. So, I'm just so excited. I love her writing and just the way she paints the picture of the environment in her stories. And lastly, I read Fangirl by Rainbow Rowell. I picked this book up around early February of this year, read about 4 to 5 chapters, put it down, and did not pick it back up again. Doesn't mean it was a bad book, it just wasn't grabbing my attention at the time. But I needed a book with a heart on the cover, and this is the only book that would not have been an early reread for me. Where's my camera? There it is. There's the heart. It's really small. I believe I actually gave it a 3.5 star rating on Goodreads, and that was just because it took me a while to get into the book, but in the end, I did enjoy it. I liked it a lot. I have some other Rainbow Rowell books in my TBR list that I need to go get, but I will be honest, I'm not in a rush to go get those books right now. That's okay. not every author is for every person, not every book is for every person. So that is the last book I read, and that completed my Owl Readathon, both for 2019 and 2020. Alright you guys, that wraps up our Owl Readathon of 2020 and what we will be reading for our May book club. If you liked this video, please give it a thumbs up and hit that red subscribe button. As always, you are welcome to comment books you are reading or books you think I should be reading. I've gotten quite a few recommendations so far, and I have actually picked some of them up. I'm very excited to be reading those. I hope you guys are staying happy and healthy, and keep reading! I look forward to reading with you guys. Bye! Time to put all the books away.